Listen only to the sound of my voice. Let your mind relax. Let your thoughts drift. Imagine yourself in a frozen forest.
Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Black Ops 3 realistic difficulty video walkthrough. This is mission 1. It is entitled Black Ops, of all things. And there are a few things I need to explain immediately about this walkthrough, so that you as a user of it can get the best experience possible. The first one is it's going to feature full commentary throughout, and I will be talking quite a lot of strategy in this one because there are a couple of things to mention. There will also be tangents where I talk about silly things and off topics, and there is no other alternative, guys. It's my way or it's watch a different video, and that might sound a little totalitarian, but this is my video, so if that's not to your flavour, please feel free to find something else that is. The next one, I'm going to be doing a lot of editing on this particular walkthrough, because there are a lot of moments like this where we're just going to be walking through areas, talking, where not a lot of things are happening, and unless there is a direct need for the player to do something, I'm probably going to trim a lot of it out, mainly because it's just going to make this a little bit more streamlined than it normally would be, and there's a really good reason for that. The campaign this year is the longest it's ever been, I think. The average level is a good hour long, and sometimes it can be longer depending on if you're struggling or if you're unrealistic and you're getting pummeled. So it's not immediately as swift as you think it's going to be. And the first thing I want to get across here, guys, especially if you're starting your realistic run, this is the longest possible campaign they could have given us for these kind of stipulations. If you're thinking of it as a normal Call of Duty where, you know, in a good 4 hours you're done, well, that's not what this is. There's no short and sweetness to it. It's not constantly blowing up all the time. There are moments where it does take its time, and it is a very refreshing pace for a player such as myself, but it's definitely going to be jarring for some people. And on realistic mode, you're really going to feel the pressures of some of the engagements. The next thing to know is, well, you don't need to know this because you already know this. If you're on this video, you know you die in one bullet from almost everything. You know that the enemies are very accurate. You know the checkpoints are not the best, and it's all going to culminate in a pretty miserable experience at times. And the thing that you really need to know is it never gets better. And I don't mean that as some kind of demotivational speech. I mean that just as a fact. This is a game that is constantly the same level of annoyance, constantly the same level of difficulty. There are moments that you're going to struggle with that will highlight in your career that maybe other people didn't even realise. Because any part of this game can be difficult, because you die in a bullet. The only things that do not kill you are anything that is remotely accessed via, say, a turret or a tank, some kind of vehicle. Those, if they shoot you with their machine guns, you will take one bullet before you die. If they shoot you with any kind of explosive, you are dead. In a very rare occurrence, if you get touched by a melee attack but it only glances on you, you can live. But the most times, you will die. Grenades will kill you. Flashbangs will not kill you, even though they do 1 damage, and technically you're meant to only have 1 life on this mode. Ambient bullshit will not kill you. I haven't died from fall damage, I haven't died from standing in fire, which is really refreshing. If you shoot your team too much, you will die. It is one of the worst aspects of Call of Duty, and they've brought it back. The irony here is, you're even in a fucking simulation at one point, and they're still getting on your balls about shooting people. It's ridiculous. And I normally don't have any issue with shooting civs in these games, but there is one particular section at the end of this game which I think is the hardest part by far. And I ended up getting more "don't kill your team, fail" messages than in any other part of the game because I was using explosives and there were a ton of tanks. And every time I get myself in a good fucking situation, I'd be like, "Do not kill your friends, you failed. Good night." Which is horrendous. But it's what the game does. Another thing to bear in mind with the damage, the drones, you will survive a bullet off the drones. But for most things, if you survive, you're very lucky. And what this is going to do is it's going to have an adverse effect on this walkthrough. By the way, those red and yellow cylinders that you see, they're in kind of glowing lights in different shapes, they're all explosives, and the explosives on this game really, really help. At this point, you're not going to see me using them too much, because I'm trying to focus on getting my aim back, even though I really should have, because they do help a lot. However, they can kill you as well, so just bear that in mind. But due to the nature of this difficulty, I'm going to be doing areas not taking much damage. So right there was an entire firefight in Call of Duty where I took no damage. Have you ever really even seen that before? It doesn't usually work. You know, COD is not a game that you can no damage, normally. But in this game, you kinda can. There are a few moments where I'm very skeptical of whether or not you'd be able to do it without at least getting grazed and watching yourself do the regenerate, but for the most, you are going to see moments where I don't take damage for quite long periods of time, and of course we're going to get people who do not believe that this is unrealistic. So, there are a few things I did during the playthrough, and the playthrough itself should speak for itself. But one of the first ones is, every time I do something that I'm kind of surprised at, I'm going to pause it fleetingly, and you're going to see 3 blue, like, numerals that signify the Black Ops 3 logo. That means it's unrealistic, because that's what the difficulty icon looks like. If I made this game, I would have it in the bottom right hand corner next to the HUD, so that you can always see what difficulty it's on, just for the bitches who are just ignorant. And the big problem here we have with the culture of gaming, folks, is we love to blame other people for our mistakes. Anybody but us. And that's what that mentality is. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean that the video you are watching is anything other than what it is. And if your first reaction is to assume somebody is a liar online, other than accepting that you can't do something, then I just don't want to know you. I don't want anything to do with you, and you are the type of person that I do not like. And I don't mean to be offensive, and I don't mean to offend, but it's true. I cannot stand people who blame everything but themselves when they are to blame. It's one of the most ironically funny things about watching DSP, because that's the reason I go to him, because he's a delusional maniac, but I think that's funny, and it's not interacting with my videos, so that's why it works. But for instance, right now, this was a sequence where I could have trimmed some of this out, because there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of plot happening here, but there was some interacting with the door, and when this door opens, there is a very important part coming up. This here is the first tricky fight of the game, and it's only tricky because you don't have the best position. And the first thing you're going to learn is there is no such thing as cover on this game unless it's neck high. And even then, the AI is so accurate, they'll probably still get you. And there are moments when you're in cover, when anyone shoots at you, flip a coin. Did you live? Well, you did okay. Did you die? Nothing to do with you, everything to do with the fact that you can't control it. Like this cover here, not good cover. This is cover that will get you killed, so I would recommend bobbing up and down to make sure that you are less of a profile. The best cover is where you are literally a forehead with a barrel. And even then, it gets pretty tight sometimes. But I thought this mission was really evil, because there's a lot of mid to long range engagements here if you're playing realistic mode right, and they give you a sub. And subs are not the easiest gun to control. Especially right now where I play on max sensitivity, which is number 14, and I'm trying to get my gun skill back, because I've not played a COD since the last one, really. And I've been playing a lot of different games. I played a little bit of Halo recently. I've been playing, you know, a ton of Assassin's Creed. I haven't been doing the first-person shooter thing, so my gun skill right now is at the lowest it's been in a long time, and I need to get those old reflexes and those old motions back. That's a checkpoint just then. I love this, where you can shoot the shit off the cover so you can actually see. But on this moment right now, there's going to be a ton of guys pushing across that middle section. Be careful on your right here, because they will flank. And if you don't know they're there, they'll tell you they're there by a bullet to your face. And this game does a wonderful thing. In the bottom left hand side, if you see me take damage, it'll show you how much life it took off me, how much I'm regenerating, and where I got shot. And almost 100% of the time, I don't know if it's an accurate indicator, if it's just the same anyway, but it's always the head. The AI has auto-aim on your face, like straight up. So there's grenades. The grenades on this game are nowhere near as bad as you're expecting them to be, but they're still pretty annoying because they take a while to go off and they have a pretty big splash radius. The final part of this phase, that lift's going to come down, so you want to try and kill as many people as you can. as they're getting off the lift. I didn't really do a very compelling job of showing you that, but I'm going to be peppering them from over of my protection on this barrel. Do not listen to the people either, my goodness. They lie, dude. Normally in a game, when the AI talks, it means it's clear and you're safe. That's not what it means in this. Now is a great clip spot, because I can put the slightest tip of my forehead at the top of these stairs and I can still see over it. So any position where you can do this is incredibly powerful. But did you notice how my team have pushed up? Another problem with the game for me, I shoot my team a lot because I find it very difficult to differentiate between them and the bad guys at times, which it's always kind of been like that, but this is the worst it's been for me. I don't know if it's because I'm getting old or I'm a casual or whatever, but as soon as you get to the elevator, this is a checkpoint. That is the first tricky sequence done. Good job. Now that you've been introduced to the rest of the squad and the crazy special abilities that you're going to see these fellas use, as I come along and punch them all in the face. So I'm not entirely sure what that move he just did is. I don't know if it's the pulsar move that you can do which makes everybody die, which you're going to see a lot of that because it's a fantastic ability. But this is another one of those tricky rooms where the game, in all its cinematic glory, wants you to rush in, but if you do that you'll die. Unless you get pretty lucky. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a little strategy where you can just spam a lot of grenades and you can get a free refill. This is known as the Rainbow Six Vegas realistic mode difficulty strategy. But what you want to be doing here, ideally, is pushing the door. If you push the doorway, it's going to spawn a particular angle of... Oh no, my bad, this is the wrong room. This is just a kill room. So this is not bad at all. I'm being incredibly tentative because I've been bitten a few times and it does get to you. And when I first started playing, it was that moment of being like, how bad is this really going to be? Is it going to be veteran bad with bullshit damage? And then I opened that first door, and I died, and it was like, okay, yes. So it's definitely one bullet kill. And then I did that door again, and nobody shot me. And it was that moment of realising the enemies aren't as bad as they were on veteran in those old campaigns, because they couldn't be. If they were, you wouldn't win. You couldn't win. Like... If anybody remembers COD 4 on Veteran, and I'll always remember it because it's the first one I did on Veteran, I've never been up against AI that was that good at just smiting everything you did. Like, there were moments when you'd run into a room and before you knew there was anybody in the room, you died. Because they were so responsive. They were bullshit, they really were. And it taught you an important lesson of pushing checkpoints and praying, because that's the only thing that mattered. If you push this particular doorway here and you get to the door, it'll trigger the second APC to turn up. And what that will do is it will skip to the second phase much quicker, and you don't have to interact with the plane to get rid of the first APC. However, this was my first recording of it, and I did actually have to play back through the first few campaign levels again because I lost my save, which I'm probably going to talk about in a moment. So I've played this level again since I recorded this, and it's just as tricky. You'll notice I'm shooting at the plane here. You're meant to shoot at the bombs, but it doesn't work until the second APC turns up. So I'm wasting bullets at that point, and I'm trying to clip these people. Which, do you see how well they blend in? So there's me trying to put some bullets on those turrets again. Those missiles, sorry. Doesn't work. You have to trip the second APC, Chris. Come on, dude. Get in the doorway. There it was. So it might happen after a time. I'm not sure. But at this point, you don't have to do it. Your team will do something too. Your team will straight up destroy it for you, which is really, really nice. As I pick up the ammunition and I perhaps check the recording to make sure it was going. And then I'm going to get back in here. And has it gone? There it goes. So there is no checkpoint at this point. You have to clear this room. If you die, you'll go before you even started engaging this hangar. So it's a pretty steep checkpoint, but that's what this game is all the way through. Whenever you're in a spot and you go, I hope it checkpointed, the answer is almost unanimously no, because that's how how my experience with the game went for most of it. And to try and give you some confidence if you are dreading this, because there is an achievement / trophy tied to it, so if you're one of those people, you'll probably have to commit to this mode. It isn't as hard as COD 4, COD 2 or COD 5 on Veteran, but the checkpoints in those games were designed better. And I know that sounds like a massive joke, because it is, because the checkpoints in those games were fucking horrible too. But they were better than this. I've never played a Call of Duty where I honestly felt almost all the time like I should have been seeing the notification for a checkpoint and I wasn't getting it. And what it does is it forces you to play very differently, and it forces you into a very different mentality. And before this game came out, I was watching a Drifter video. I don't normally watch this guy. He's knowledgeable, he probably makes really, really good content, but it's one of those things where I don't actually like the sound of his voice. And it sounds horrible when you say that, because I've had it said to me, and like, it's just one of those things. I don't know what it is, I couldn't tell you why, I just can't listen to the guy. I wish I could, he seems like a nice person, but it's one of those voices that just really just rubs me the wrong way, and I completely understand that. So I choose to watch other things. But I was listening to him talk about realistic mode because he knew things that I didn't. And he was saying it was one bullet kill, and that he couldn't imagine it because he thought Veteran was almost impossible anyway, which, unfortunately, Drifter, Veteran is very manageable. It's just hard. It's hard because it's unfair. It's unfair because you don't have the reflexes of a robot, and they do. That's, you know, you've got to make it work. And using the secondary pistol in this game is a nightmare because it's worthless. And I'm going to talk about that later. But he said that Treyarch, when they made realistic mode and they watched people play, there was this wonderful thing that happened where everybody had to play the game differently, and they saw everyone who touched it change the way they play. And the way he said it was almost as if this was the sales pitch for realistic mode. And I thought it was fucking hilarious. I truly did. Because he's saying, like, everybody got on their belly and shit the pants the moment they started controlling because they realised just how much death came. And it's this funny thing of course people are going to play it differently. You've designed it so we have to play it like a bitch. If you don't play this game on realistic mode like a massive bell end, you will die. Fact. If you don't play it like the most cowardly shrew, you will die. There's no two words about it. You're gonna die. Because that's the way the game's designed. So for them to acknowledge this whole, we noticed people were playing the game really differently and we thought it made it nice and exciting, like, come on guys, how else can you play it? You're up against the computer that has perfect aim at all distances, has no visibility issues, can always see you, always knows where you are, and you're saying that you had to play the game differently? Of course you do. Like, you have to play Veteran differently, you have to play Hardened differently. The only game you can play, like I assume this generic, ubiquitous COD player plays, is like Recruit, when nothing shoots at you and they all high-five you as you just shoot them. Like, there's some wonderful atmospherics in this game as well. It's a truly beautiful game, but it must be said, the frame rate suffers for like the first time in my COD experience. Never really played a Call of Duty to my knowledge where I spotted the frames dropping as much as this one. And there's two sides to this coin. The first one is, it makes me happy because it shows that they're being ambitious and they're pushing the hardware, even though we don't really know how to use the hardware right now, so that's the reasons why it's probably so choppy and maybe 900p on the Xbox One or whatever. But the second thing to bear in mind as well is I believe that this game was designed with co-op in mind. It's one of the main reasons why I think the frame rate is so very interesting at times. And during the campaign I only saw it dip in very specific moments, but I felt it, and I think that's worse. Noticing frame rate dropping is one thing, feeling it is a completely different thing altogether, and I felt it on the controls a few times, but it didn't ever really get in the way. I'm not going to say that I would have won if it wasn't for the frame rate, because I don't think this is the kind of game where you need that all the time. Like, there are moments in this game where all you need to do is run forward, and the frame rate's not going to help you there. And running forward can be the hardest thing in the world. Believe me when I say this. Now, this particular sequence here, you don't have to mess around with these targets. It's one of those time sequences where you can wait for them to finish and destroy them. The mobility options in this game need to be discussed because they're going to save your life, and you're not going to see me doing one of them for the longest time because I completely forgot you could do it. And it's one of those things where they've introduced all this new stuff to this game, but because it's not a staple of the series and I'm not that used to using it, and I didn't play the beta or anything, so I'm not all up on Black Ops 3's dick, I don't know, this stuff doesn't come natural to me. So the ability to slide on your knees is an ability that Far Cry 2 did. Like, many games have done it before. Fear did it, where you could do the slide. You could actually do context-sensitive slide attacks in Fear. where you kicked people as you slid. Like, it's a cool feature to have this ability. On this game, they turn it into almost the Vanquish knee slide, where you do this super boosted forward slide that covers a really good distance, but it uses your boosters. And you might think, it's really good, and if you ever need to go from cover to cover or go somewhere and you don't have any faith in surviving the transportation aspect of it, use the boost on your knees, use the running crouch ability. It's so much better than jump boosting, it's so much better than wall running, although you can try those just in case. In my experience, from the evidence that I gathered when playing, I would always die if I tried to double jump to try and make myself a harder target to shoot. But if I boosted, the computer didn't kill me as often, so always prioritize the knee boost over the other options you can do. This level does two really good things that I like. The first one is the type of thing we've been doing the entire time, and if the reviews for this game were judging it based on this particular part of the campaign, I would 100% agree with them by saying that it's, you know, it's nothing new, it's a misstep, it's boring. Although I don't think this mission is boring, I can understand that kind of criticism, because at this point there's been a lot of Call of Duties. Your enjoyment will directly stem from how much you can put up with doing intrinsically the same thing over and over. Are you the person who can do that? Are you the person who still gets excited about Call of Duty? Well, this mission here is really standard COD fare. There's been some shooting, they've been introducing some characters, they've been showing you the guns, they've been showing you some of the limitations, and then they're going to be introducing you to the setup for the next level. And it's a massive contrast, and it's a great contrast. Because believe it or not, in very subtle ways that make a profound difference, every level after this is going to be different. It's not going to be different a la, it plays like a completely different game, I'm so glad I bought a console for this because this is not COD, this is something new. It's not going to be that. But what it will be is a very nuanced addition to the experience that I appreciated a lot. So much so, I found myself on my first playthrough feeling like this was a next generation COD. Because I think the last two have been a bit of a misstep. I don't really think that they could have been anything all that important in the series. Like, if we were to lose a couple CODs, I don't think anyone would bat an eye if we lost Ghosts or Advanced Warfare. And I liked both of those campaigns when I first played them, but in hindsight, like, the Ghost campaign's fucking horrible. I don't know what was in my system at the time that made me say the things I said about that. I've recently rented it for the Xbox One to play it again, and I am not enjoying it at all, just straight up. And I don't know what changed, but something did, and it wasn't the game, it was just my appreciation of it. Oh, another thing as well, guys, for realistic mode, every vehicle section is a blessing, because it's not stupid veteran nonsense. It's straight up, I've never died in a vehicle. I've took a lot of damage, you're going to see me take damage, but I'm not going to die, and I'm going to take tons of bullets. So, whatever they did on these particular vehicle moments, kudos to Treyarch, because I think they did the same in Black Ops 2, and they definitely did the same in this, so I really appreciate it. Oh, this sequence here kills the frame rate as well, especially in co-op. But it's cool, and it's fun, and it was exciting. But the second thing that this level does is it's an abilities and a character tease. It's showing you these people who are all actors from various walks of theatre, and it's introducing you to them being essentially Uncle Sam's helper. They are super soldiers, that's what they are. Super impressive, super dynamic, super soldiers that you are essentially helping commit this mission, you know, finish this mission. And the game is going to pull a Red Faction 2, which is a very eclectic reference, and if you got that, I'm happy that there are people that played that game, even though it wasn't as good as the first one. But just by me saying that, by virtue of me saying that they're going to... Do you see that? I lived. Take a shot. That's the drinking game for this walkthrough. Every time I take a hit and I don't die, take a shot. At this moment, you want to go straight on your belly and chuck a grenade over here to blow up the cars. If you blow the cars up, it generally gets rid of the people that are there. And this game has one massive flaw in its design on realistic mode, which is something that I really don't think that they looked at quick enough, or for long enough. The checkpoints are too lazy. And this has nothing to do with how bad they are. This is just straight up. In a normal playthrough, You don't need the checkpoint to proc immediately when you get control of the game. In this one, you do. And the amount of times you will die before the game even gives you control, checkpoints or anything, is ridiculous. And then what it does is it puts you back before cutscenes, before introductions, before all kinds of madness. And it's not your fault. It should have been better. But at the end there, guys, I left in the title card for the things that pop when you beat the level. You'll notice it said, was it 2,500 experience for doing it on realistic mode? So, once again, I'm going to be putting that in just for the people who like to doubt. I know my subscribers at this point have full faith in my walkthroughs because they know me as a person, pretty much. I'm not a liar. I have integrity. I don't get some kind of weird buzz lying about my abilities in games on the internet to strangers and 12-year-olds. Just doesn't really do anything for me. I'm a grown-ass man. But thank you very much for watching. This is the beginning of a very interesting walkthrough, and I hope to see you for the duration of it. You take care now.